Weirdly enough, the origins of King Ghidorah stem from legendary Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa, the visionary behind iconic samurai movies like Seven Samurai and Rodan. The story goes that Toho was planning on releasing Kurosawa's then upcoming period piece, Redbeard. However, production was falling behind schedule and likely wouldn't be released on time. As a result, Toho decided to quickly make a new Godzilla movie to fill that slot in the production schedule. Producer Tomoyuki Tanaka wanted to continue the trend of making Kaiju crossovers following King Kong vs. Godzilla and Mothra vs. Godzilla. The idea here was to bring back Godzilla and Mothra as well as Rodan, who had his own solo film 8 years prior. While it wasn't as planned out as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think it's fair to draw parallels to that franchise. Essentially, this upcoming crossover would be like the Avengers of the Toho Kaiju universe. This film also serves as the introduction to King Ghidorah, an alien monster that many consider to be the Joker to Godzilla's Batman. A really interesting piece of trivia is that Ghidorah's initial design gave him a blue skin tone with rainbow wings. This look is so wildly different from what we're used to, and as weird as it is, I'm glad they went with the gold instead. It keeps the design simple. Bandai recently announced that they'll be releasing a toy of this prototype design, which I think is pretty damn cool. Looking at the crew behind Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, the usual suspects return. Ishiro Honda is sitting in the director's chair for his fourth Godzilla film. Tomoyuki Tanaka produced, while Akira Ifukube composed the score. Most importantly though, Eiji Tsuburaya yet again acted as the special effects director, and this film might very well be his best work yet, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. The most controversial behind-the-scenes decision was to gradually move Godzilla away from being a villain and to have him act more like a human in order to appeal to children. This is a storytelling choice that was made by Tomoyuki Tanaka and was supported by Eiji Tsuburaya. However, the most vocal critic of this decision was director Ishiro Honda, who stated, "I am concerned that we are drifting toward taking the easy route, believing a silly storyline is okay, though it might be mocked by adults simply because the film is made for children. Kids will not tolerate nonsense." Despite these qualms from Honda, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster was a hit at the box office. Now, this is a movie that I feel deeply conflicted about. As a kid, this was a movie that I liked but didn't love. If it was on TV, of course I would watch it because it's a Godzilla movie, but this wasn't a movie that I would intentionally seek out, if that makes sense. I always preferred its sequel, Invasion of the Astro Monster, because that one is more outwardly sci-fi focused, while Three-Headed Monster had more of an emphasis on international politics with its human drama. That being said though, I gave this movie a rewatch back when I was in high school and I remembered loving it, mainly for its incredible miniature work. Finally, after rewatching it again for this very retrospective, I still feel very conflicted and have ultimately come to the conclusion that it's a very meh movie. So let's get into it. This is Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. A meteor shower over Japan brings unexpected chaos when a massive asteroid begins emitting magnetic waves. Soon after, the pterodon Rodan rises from Mount Aso and Godzilla emerges, leading to a violent clash between the two monsters. Meanwhile, a mysterious woman claiming to be from Venus warns that an even greater threat is coming, King Ghidorah, or as they say in the dub, Ghidorah. It's a three-headed space dragon that destroyed her home planet. As Ghidorah hatches from the asteroid, it begins attacking Japan. Then Mothra arrives, attempting to convince Godzilla and Rodan to unite against the powerful alien. Initially, both monsters refuse, but after seeing Mothra bravely fight Ghidorah alone, they join the battle. Together, the three monsters overpower Ghidorah, forcing it to retreat, leaving Earth safe for the time being. The opening credits of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster immediately set an exhilarating tone by subtly hinting at the arrival of King Ghidorah. Through a clever montage, we are treated to rare glimpses of scenes that will eventually unfold later in the film, teasing just enough to build anticipation. It's a brilliant narrative device that carefully stirs intrigue around the film's primary antagonist without laying all of its cards on the table too early. This restrained approach not only sparks the viewer's curiosity, but also establishes an ominous undercurrent that permeates the entire first act of the movie. It's almost like showing a trailer to the movie before the movie plays. Like, it kind of works, kind of doesn't, but for the most part, it does. One of the film's more fascinating aspects is its depiction of Princess Salno of Selgina, I believe that's how you say it. She brings a unique, almost otherworldly aesthetic to the film, and the fictional country that she hails from is this weird blend of Middle Eastern, Eastern Europe, and then like Japanese. It's wild and I love it. This fusion of cultures creates this exotic yet vaguely familiar backdrop that deepens the world building without ever becoming too distracting. Her costume design is another noteworthy feature. It evokes a sense of royalty and mystique, rooted in a fictionalized land that, for 1960s, must have felt recognizable yet also foreign. There's an elegance to her portrayal that further enriches the film's mythos. The crash of her plane is one of the most memorable sequences in the early part of the film. Its power lies in its sound design. The eerie use of the theremin beforehand intensifies the supernatural atmosphere surrounding it, but what truly stands out is the chilling silence that follows the explosion. It just feels so weird and off-putting, and I like that. It's a subtle yet powerful moment that sets Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster apart from other kaiju films of the era. A reoccurring strength of the movie is its ability to expand upon the lore established in earlier Showa-era films. The Shobijin are reintroduced, but this time with a fresh twist. Rather than being mere mystical figures isolated from society, they've been elevated to the status of television personalities, which I think wonderfully reflects the evolving world within the Godzilla universe. It suggests a world that has begun to adapt to the existence of these giant creatures. Children know about them. The mythology is no longer confined to hidden temples or ancient prophecies. It's woven into the fabric of everyday life, blurring the lines between the fantastical and the ordinary. However, where the film greatly struggles is with its human characters. In comparison to previous films like Mothra vs. Godzilla, the human storyline in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster is very undercooked. While the Princess Salno subplot is decent, where she becomes a prophet warning of the impending doom from King Ghidorah, it's intriguing, but all the other human scenes just fall flat around it.
Kids! I can't find the remote and I refuse to stand up! Kids!
The political intrigue and spy elements, which could have been really compelling, come off as lackluster, and they fail to generate the tension or drama necessary to sustain interest. Instead, these scenes just feel like they're distracting from the real stars of the show, the monsters. The pacing also leaves much to be desired. For a film with a runtime of 92 minutes, it takes over 45 minutes for Godzilla to make his grand entrance. This is such a weird choice, especially for a film that's meant to showcase the titans of the kaiju world. While delaying a monster's reveal can be a brilliant way to build suspense, here it feels like the filmmakers were trying to juggle the human drama with the monster action and dropping the ball almost immediately. The result is a sluggish first half, with Princess Salno's repeated warnings about King Ghidorah's arrival becoming very tedious. And it just keeps going, where she constantly mentions, oh, you're all doomed, we're all gonna die, and that's it. That's the only substance we get for 45 minutes. But once Godzilla does finally show up, the movie takes on a whole new life. The miniature work, a hallmark of the Godzilla series, is as impressive as ever, with intricately detailed cityscapes being torn apart in spectacular fashion. There's this common consensus from people that stuff wasn't meant to be seen back then, so when a film gets remastered to Blu-ray, you can kind of see stuff you weren't supposed to see. An example would be wires or, little things like that. Matte paintings being more obvious, and here, you don't actually get that. You get more detail in these miniatures that audiences probably didn't get to see back then, whether it be because they were watching it on VHS or even just a crappy DVD transfer. When viewed in high definition today, the craftsmanship behind these sequences is undeniable. The attention to detail in the destruction scenes is so thorough that they remain visually stunning even by modern standards. It is a testament to the artistry of the special effects team. As negative as this specific retrospective might sound towards Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, I cannot sing its praises enough when it comes to the miniatures. Rodan's introduction alongside Godzilla is another highlight of the film. Their initial confrontation with Godzilla scanning the skies to locate his airborne rival is a moment thick with tension. I love how there's this eerie silence as he just stares among the clouds trying to figure out where Rodan is. It's wonderful. His aerial attacks are a masterclass in kaiju combat choreography, and my favorite part is when he just starts pecking Godzilla's head nonstop. It's really funny. The devastation wrought on the miniature cities during their battle is nothing short of breathtaking, with Rodan swooping in to wreak havoc while Godzilla rampages below. It's a perfect blend of action and artistry that serves as a reminder of why these films have endured for decades and will continue to do so long after I'm gone. Yet, despite the exhilarating monster action, the human elements just continue to bog down the narrative. After Rodan's appearance, the film just inexplicably shifts focus back to Princess Salno and her repetitive warnings, which just feel like a narrative crutch rather than a genuine source of tension. The disjointed nature of the script becomes more apparent in these moments, as the filmmakers just seem unsure of how to weave in the human and monster storylines together. It's so front-loaded with Princess Salno that you just want it to finally cut away and focus on the monsters, and it never really does 100%. But thankfully, again, the introduction of King Ghidorah breathes new life into the film. His entrance is nothing short of iconic, with chaos erupting on the streets before we get a full glimpse of the creature. There's a reason why they continued to reuse that same exact shot of him becoming a fireball and then morphing into King Ghidorah. Like, that has been reused in so many other Godzilla films from here on out, because it just works. Ghidorah's design was inspired by the legendary Yamata no Orochi, and it is a marvel of suitmation, a technical and visual achievement that remains one of the most memorable of the Godzilla franchise. While editing this, I was made aware that Kaizo Murase passed away at the age of 89. Murase is one of the most important people in all of kaiju cinema. His first ever gig was sculpting Varan for Varan the Unbelievable, but he would go on to sculpt the imago form of Mothra in 1961, King Kong and Godzilla in King Kong vs. Godzilla, but most relevant here, he sculpted King Ghidorah, which I think is such an incredible feat. That's why I feel like now is a really good time to talk about this. Following Ghidorah the three-headed monster, he would go on to sculpt Frankenstein, Baragon, Gamera, Gaios, Virus, Pecking Man, and even Mecha King Ghidorah. Later on in his career, he would make Howl from Beyond the Fog, which I covered on this channel in depth, as well as his final film, which he directed himself, Brush of the God. Not to mention, he also worked on Kamen Rider, Ultraman Ace, and Green Man. So this is a guy who has pretty much spent his entire life working on kaiju cinema, and I just wanted to include this tribute to him in this retrospective because he is an absolute legend that deserves more recognition. The climactic battle between Rodan, Godzilla, and King Ghidorah is nothing short of spectacular. Rodan's relentless aerial assaults, combined with Godzilla's brute force, make for one of the most entertaining kaiju clashes in the series. The effects, particularly the composite shots of Rodan soaring over the city, are remarkable for their time and hold up surprisingly well even today. These moments remind us why the Godzilla films have endured for so long. They're not just monster movies, they're showcases of cinematic craftsmanship and creativity. Despite its flaws, mainly the pacing and uneven focus, Ghidorah the three-headed monster remains a pivotal entry in the Godzilla series. It marked a tonal shift towards more imaginative storytelling, with the monsters themselves being given distinct personalities and the ability to communicate. This is a bold move that would shape the future of the franchise. For fans of the Showa era, this film is a crucial turning point, one that paved the way for the more whimsical and dynamic entries that followed. The English dub of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster is a surprisingly solid effort that, in many ways, enhances the experience for English-speaking audiences. Supervised by Joseph Bellucci, this version clocks in at a very brisk 85 minutes, making several notable changes that, while altering the original, result in a much more streamlined and more accessible film. For those of us who grew up watching this version on repeat, like I did, it's hard to imagine Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster without the quirks and adjustments made for the US release. One of the most significant changes in the American version is the replacement of Venus with Mars in Princess Salno's prophetic dialogue. Why they did this, I don't know, but kind of works. I don't know. Another change that stands out is the inclusion of stock music during some of the monster battle scenes, replacing Akira Ifukube's score. This is a change that I really don't like. I always hated whenever the English dubs would take out parts of Ifukube's score and replace it with some stock generic horror film score, and it just ends up dating the film to whenever the dub was produced. However, what truly makes the dub shine, though, is the quality of the voice acting. While many dubs from this era were often rushed or haphazardly done, this one benefits from surprisingly strong performances. The voice actors, though not household names by any means, managed to convey emotion and gravitas in the more dramatic moments. For me, growing up with this version, it was more than just a dubbed film. It was the definitive version of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. It wasn't until the Criterion Collection box set came out that I actually gave the original Japanese cut a watch. The American dub, for me, just holds so much nostalgia. There's a certain charm in how it tweaks and reshapes the film, making it both international and distinctly American, all while retaining the core of the kaiju spectacle that made it such a favorite among Godzilla fans. In the end, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster may not be the most polished installment in the Godzilla series, but it's one of the most ambitious. It takes risks, some of which pay off brilliantly and some of which falter,